Good afternoon and welcome to everyone present here. On behalf of the Council, I really welcome you all to our episode of Manan today. Today we have architect Prashant Dupare with us. And to give a brief introduction about him, he is the founder and principal architect of Earthbound Architecture, which is a contextual design practice which is in Mumbai, which is engaged in creating sustainable and appropriate design solutions. He is a 2007 graduate of our college and has had an architectural practice for more than 10 years. He has worked on a plethora of residential projects, schools, villas, and restaurants with ecological materials and techniques. And he believes that architecture has the power to affect the core of society and must be used responsibly. Challenging the normal is a constant effort, and being open to new ideas and concepts of learning is essential to growth, both as an individual and as an architect for Prashant. He is currently working on a natural building project in Vada, and he'll be discussing various aspects of this project with us. So today's talk is called Earth Architecture, and I think it's something that's generating a lot of interest in students today. So I guess we're all very excited and we're looking forward to what you have to say. So welcome and over to you.
Hi, thank you, Shruti. I'm architect Prashant from Earthbound Architecture, and today I'll be talking and sharing our experience of building one of the natural building using mud. So let's start with the presentation. So there are various reasons why an architect must consider mud as a construction material and understand how it works. One, it is very sustainable building material. One of the basic principles of sustainable construction practice is to use locally available materials. And mud is easily available on most of the places. Almost any type of mud can be used for construction once you do the basic tests and add required ingredients to it, as it is available naturally and does not require much processing to use. Also, there is no waste generated during the construction, and even it simply goes back to earth. What we got from earth goes back to earth. Mud structures are naturally insulated and warm construct with mud compared to conventional materials. For a country like us, cost is major driving factor as we struggle to provide good housing to all. People can build their own houses with mud if we can bring back this traditional. Mud structures are more labor intensive and can be made using local labor with basic training. The exchange of traditional knowledge of the local labor and our scientific and architectural understanding of mud has been phenomenal in our. Third is because we can build so-called pakka buildings with mud. It is a myth that only RCC buildings are pakka and mud structures are not. More than 300-year-old old structures built with mud, which are standing in good shape, while RCC buildings have lifespan of 40 to 50 years. Fourth, mud structures are healthier to live in and adjust to the seasonal changes, creating more natural, comfortable building for human body. So then why don't we use it? Actually, the answer is we used to, and now we have stopped. There are more houses built with mud in India than any other material. Initially, we used to build with mud, but in modern times, during our professional education, we are usually taught how to design with RCC and not mud and other natural materials. According to me, it is need of time that we remove the tag of poor and kacha from mud and get it back into mainstream for the sheer values it provides. Now, important question is how do we use it? So let's start with where do you get mud from? Actually, it is ideal to get it from the site. In cases, if you don't have it available on site, you can procure it from the nearest available place, but most probably you will have it available on your site. So we can dig a small pit to see what kind of soil it is. Avoid using top layer as it consists of decaying organic materials like leaves, which are not suitable for building but are very crucial for farming. Below that, the soil consists mainly of gravel, sand, and silt. So, how do we know the suitability of soil for the construction? The most important factor for construction is the soil. Usually, it should have 15 to 30% clay. So, and that proportion is then suitable for the construction. Get soil tested in lab. One can perform simple tests on field, which will give indication of percentage of different contents in the soil. So let's talk about the different tests. First one is cigar test. Take some moist soil in your hand and roll to make a cigar shape. Now squeeze it and see how long before it breaks. If it does not get shaped at all and falls into pieces, that means it has too much of sand and no clay. If it gets squeezed to 2 to 3 inches before falling off, it has good mix, is good for building. If it gets squeezed to 8 to 9 inches, that means it has too much of clay. Next test is biscuit test. Actually, take some moist soil in hand and make biscuit shape of it and let it dry under the sun. If it crumbles while drying or it gets crumbled very easily, then it has too much of sand and no clay. If you can break it, but it takes pressure to crumble, then it has good mix of sand and clay and it is good for building. If it is hard and difficult to break or you can't powder it, it means it has too much of clay. Next and the most important test is bottle test. Actually, we recommend doing this test because it will give you much better idea of proportion of sand and clay in the soil. Take some soil in a transparent glass bottle, put water in it and shake it well. Ensure that it is mixed properly and let it settle overnight. Sand is the heaviest and will settle in the bottom part, followed by silt, and clay will settle on the top. Measure the depth of each layer and it will give you an idea of proportion of each in that part of soil. Clay is sticky and it binds different contents of soil. If the percentage of clay is between 15 to 30, if there is less clay, it won't be strong enough. You will have to add more clay rich soil to it. If there is more clay, it can crack easily. You have to add sand or sandy soil in it. We can actually avoid using sand if it is not available locally by using surki, which is burnt bricks powder. Let's talk about soil stabilization. So because each soil has different contents in different quantity, depending on the nature of soil, the stabilizers need to be added in the right proportion and tested to ensure that the mud structure is durable and strong. It is important to give time and effort to this step, since a lack of understanding here can cause further issues during execution and the use of the structure. Cement and lime are the most commonly used stabilizers. We recommend using lime over cement wherever possible. Cement, like it is naturally available, unlike cement which requires a lot of energy for the production. Lime has tendency to get stronger with the time, while the cement gets weaker. There are other naturally occurring stabilizers like neem leaves, etc., which have different functions. Like some have binding properties, while some improve the strength. Some act as anti-termite, while some help in avoid cracking. Now, actually building with the mud. There are 5 main types of mud construction. Traditionally, usually any region would use one of these systems, and in some cases, combination of 2 or more are used. Each system has its own merits and limitations. It is important to understand those so that we can use climate and building requirements. First is cob. Cob is actually simplest and oldest technique of building with mud. Large lumps of mud are roughly molded into spherical shapes of about 1 foot diameter, which can be held in 2 hands easily. Start building the wall by putting these balls on surface and pressing them. It is very easy to create different shapes with cob, so let your creative juices flow. Cob is mainly used to make single story structures. Next is rammed earth. Actually, cob walls which are rammed to increase its strength. Shuttering is made so as to hold the mud in desired wall thickness. The mud is rammed using wooden or metal ram rod. Rammed earth walls are stronger than cob and are suitable for approximately 2 to 3 story buildings. Next is wattle and daub. Wattle and daub walls are non-load bearing walls. They are built using cane or split bamboo woven around wooden or bamboo posts. Flexibility. So different shapes can be achieved using wattle and daub. Next is Adobe. Adobe are basically sun-dried bricks. Small mold of wood or metal is used to make the required size bricks into the mold and turned out and let cured slowly and dry. They can be used just like regular bricks, and 2 to 3 story structures can be built using Adobe. Next is pressed earth blocks. These are similar to Adobe, but bricks are compressed using a simple machine. Mud is usually stabilized using cement or lime, and these bricks are as strong as regular burnt bricks. So let me talk about our experience of building with the co-op. We are currently making a natural building in Wada near Mumbai. We'll talk about our experience of making it right from the design process to passive climate technology and the construction technologies used. So let me start with the design process. The site is a small hillock situated in Wada near Mumbai. The hillock consists of plantation of various trees and partly natural jungle having fine blend of flora and fauna. Preserving the trees on site was important, so we decided to build around the trees. The house is planned around a big old umber tree, also known as gular. We started with measuring the diameter of the tree and marked it on a grid paper. And similarly, we marked other trees around it on the grid. Having all the trees located on paper helped us figuring out where and how we want to build. With mud is the kind of flexibility it offers. One can easily create free flowing organic spaces and forms using mud. It is like hand sculpting your space the way you wish. So you can unleash your creativity with mud house design. Once we had basic layout in place, it was a good idea to make a small model. Model helped conceptualize the three-dimensional sense of space and helped understand and decide compositions of wall, roof, etc. Clay is a fantastic material which allows making free flow models easily. We have used this model to explain the design to the local laborers on site. A basic principle of designing a sustainable building is using passive climate technologies while designing. To introduce artificial energy intensive corrective measures later during the use of the building. The building orientation is as per Sunpath, seasonal changes and use of the rooms. The areas to be used maximum open towards the north in north light and avoid harsh south light. Roof slopes are maintained to avoid heat gain through the day. We spent time on site to understand the wind flow patterns and positions the openings to maximize the wind catchment from the site. The building uses courtyards to allow ventilation throughout the structure. Cross ventilation is critical in humid climates. Along with the use of the mud, the internal temperature in the structure should be comfortable no matter what the season is. Now the materials that we have used can be divided into three main categories. First is local material available on site. The soil was dug out from the site to create a pit which will be used as a farm pond. The wood was cut from teak trees which have been planted 8 to 10 years ago and have been cut with the help of local experts who have been cutting wood for generations, and they understand how to ensure that the cut allows regrowth of the teak trees without damaging the roots permanently. The stone was easily available on site and was used mainly for the rubble foundations in its natural form. Local bamboo is used for outland of walls. Second set is regenerative natural materials like lime. Lime is used instead of cement, and we have actually ordered bamboo from outstation because the locally available bamboo were not of the construction quality. And third category is actually recycled materials. Since mud to work with a lot of different materials together. We have recycled old bottles, tires for window grills, supports, broken pieces for windows, doors and roof. So let's talk about the construction technologies we have used for the project. The site is rocky and we reach hard strata within maximum 2 to 3 feet of digging. We have used the random rubble foundations due to easy availability of stone on site, its durability, and it's less labor intensive. The random rubble foundation is one of the least expensive foundations. We decided to use walls made of cob due to the load bearing capacity. It also offered flexibility for curvilinear walls and climatic conditions on the site. The base layer of plaster is made of mud and lime, and for finishing and waterproofing, lime plaster coats will be done. The green roof is still to be completed. We are of treated natural wood and bamboo. The bamboo was treated using boric borax solution on site, and wood is being coated with linseed oil before use. The floor will be rammed cob, which will be sealed and waterproofed using wax and linseed oil. So let me talk about the foundations. After marking the wall positions on site, the soil was excavated to make a 2 feet wide trench. First layer of soil is done with small stones, which forms the flat base surface to put big stones. In next layer is of trench such that they overlap with each other. Fill the gap in between with smaller stones or gravels. The gap between the rubble was filled with mud and lime mortar paste. The lime mortar paste consists of 1 part mud, 1 part surkhi, and half part. So we started the process of cob walls, sample cobs. It is very critical to try different proportions since each soil is unique. The cob making simply requires the aggregates and admixtures in place, the local labor, and some fun community spirit. The process of cob making with all the ingredients in place was quite fast, and the design needs to be in place along with the other materials during the construction. We have used bamboo beams and wood as lintels to give shape to the openings. Connections need to be put in place since the walls are quite hard and thick and not easy to dig into. The electric piping is done after the walls but before the plastering. If you cross a monsoon during construction, the walls need to be protected entirely during the rains. Mud walls exposed to rains without the plaster strength and cracks need to be checked through samples and by adding various admixtures. However, the important thing to understand is that any ingredient to cob and plaster has to be added for a reason. You need to understand the role of each ingredient plays in the whole and then take a decision. The roof of the house is going to be a green roof, which is basically a waterproofing lining of EPDM sheets, organic soil, and the top layer of lawn. The roofing layer gets to be quite heavy, especially during the rains, and drainage and waterproofing needs for the structure to be successful. So you can see the bamboos laid over the wooden beams, and we'll be putting this EPDM sheet over it, and the layer of soil, and finally the lawn. It has been very exciting and satisfying journey working with the mud. We have been training local unskilled laborers and been learning their traditional methods from them. It is wonderful to experience to see your imagined spaces taking shapes. While building with the mud, it is important to understand using it for construction. The understanding gives clear picture of limitations and opportunities any material or technology offers. From direct rain, so it's important to provide sufficient roof overhangs. Lime is beautiful natural material to protect the mud. Offers good water resistance. Apply lime plasters and lime wash to walls exposed to the heavy rains. Because each soil is standardize the proportions for mud construction, so one must test different proportions of local soil with admixtures before starting with the building. it is difficult to build high-rise buildings with mud, though there are few ancient high-rise structures built with mud. Building with mud is very flexible material and offers endless design possibilities. Explore different forms and shapes with it. There are a lot of inspiring and durable buildings of mud all over the world. We have traditionally used it in India very successfully for various regions and climates. There is a lot of research on ancient techniques and a lot of community out there if you want to reach out and find out about the mud buildings. But understanding mud is difficult since the basic nature of the mud is local. So mud buildings require time on site. It's important to hold the mud in your hand, feel it, understand it, and respond to it. Let the mud talk to you and you will feel the joy of working with mud. Thank you.
So that was a very interesting presentation, and it's something that we don't usually see because people are mostly talking about new technologies and things like that. So I think the students will have a lot of questions to ask.
Sure.
I think Mishra sir still hasn't joined, so maybe we can open up for discussion with the students. So if anyone has any questions, you can just unmute your mics and ask ahead.
Good evening,
Yes.
sorry.
Good evening.
Yes, good evening, sir. As we can see that you have a clear attachment to the countryside, and the rural touch and feel can be experienced through your work. So what do you think contributes to that?
Actually, Vada is my native town, and during to come here and spend time, visit the farms, and I've spent a lot of time with the local community. It's actually been sharing of experiences, like as you just said sometime back, these things in college. So we are taught about how to design with steel, with RCC, but we are not taught in college to design with mud or any such natural materials. So it was actually like I've been seeing them building their own houses throughout my life. I think that did affect a lot to my current approach towards architecture.
Yes, sir. So yes, sir. Even we sometimes when we're studying, then we realize that we're only studying a type of thing, and we see. So this was really like enlightening that we're seeing it, and now we know how it's done.
Yeah, it is very important to keep many times visit the rural areas, but it is important to actually see the kind of architecture that they have built, because there are reasons why they're made in specific ways. Actually, now we have started talking about sustainability and green buildings. To see all these traditional buildings, they are very good examples, and there is a lot of there are a lot of things to learn from them in terms of sustainability.
So
Yes,
I
sir.
actually wanted to ask that since we are not taught about these kind of building materials at all in college, so what sort of inspired you to start exploring this material?
So I actually visited, and there are a lot of workshops and hands-on training. Actually, almost every year I visit Torville, and there is this place called Thannal. Architect Biju Bhaskar, maybe you can conduct natural building workshops. So actually I went there and I attended those workshops, and so yeah, you just need to go explore, see things.
That's true.
Yeah, and also because see the quality of soil changes everywhere, so it is very important. So you cannot have standard proportions or standard technologies for these things. You actually have to spend time on the site. You actually have to take mud in your hand, and you need to make different samples and test it, and then you will realize, then you will know.
Yeah, it's basically a very hands-on experience.
Yeah.
Are there any more questions?
Hello, sir. Good
Yeah.
evening. So
Yeah.
you mentioned about the roof slope design. in order to minimize the heat gain. So
Yeah.
could you elaborate more on it, like how
So
to
yeah,
reduce the heat gain?
yeah, basically, sun travels from east to west via south, right? That's a very basic knowledge. And southwest side is harsh sunlight comes from. So you just need to ensure that your face southwest, because the more they face southwest, the more direct heat gain it will cause. That if you can tilt your roofs towards north side.
So can you also elaborate on the material that you used?
So this is green roof. Basically, supporting structure is those wooden posts, and above those we have put the bamboo, and we are using EPDM sheets, which are also called pond liners for waterproofing. And on the EPDM sheets, you simply put the soil and then you plant what you want to plant. Hello.
Yes, so thank you.
Yeah.
Guys, you can all ask questions, or if you're not comfortable speaking, you can also type in the chat.
Hello, sir.
Hello. Hi.
Yeah, so my name is Piyush.
Hi.
So, sir, could you tell me about the challenges which you faced while constructing this building, like the structure?
Yeah, sure. So
Means what were
one.
the?
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of design, I think coming up with the space configuration was very challenging, because there
Okay.
were a lot of trees on site, and I didn't want. The only option was to build around the existing trees. So in terms of portions of the spaces which you need to fit in correctly, uh, considering tree positions and sizes, was quite challenging. Then actually I mostly work with the local laborers. So and obviously they're not skilled enough to understand any technical drawing. So there was no point in making any working drawings. Actually, I used that sketch as a working drawing to mark the foundations, etc. And the clay model is actually used to explain the design to the laborers. So
Okay.
then one of the another challenging thing was to you need to be very uh, about the kind, and how do you test them, because if your sample or your proportions goes wrong, then you have to redo a lot of things.
Okay. And sir, could you please tell us that? Means, could you please explain us again that how the walls were protected from the rains?
So one major factor is your roof overhang. You need to ensure that we mostly get winds from the western side. So even the rain hits your walls mainly from west. So your southwest sides need to have proper roof overhangs. And also we are plastering. So the first coat is mud and lime plaster, and the final finishing coat will be lime. Lime is a very good water repellent, so helps protecting the walls from the rains.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Any more question? Yeah, Kirit is asking that when brickwork is done in a rat trap bond, is it difficult to work in a curve with this mechanism? And how do you achieve those curves, like in your previous projects?
So if you really think about it, it's not difficult to make any curved brick wall. You simply need in the curved manner. There is nothing else that you have to do. And also making a rat trap bond wall in the curvilinear fashion is as simple or is just the same as making in any other bond. You just need to put your bricks in vertical position so that there is a cavity in between. So it's not really difficult, and any mason with any limit easily make this wall. The only thing is that you need to be on site and you need to explain it to them properly so that they understand it. Skillful job.
Yes, so even when you're explaining these projects to the people in rural areas, they're usually not used to seeing these curve forms and things like that. So how do they respond to your ideas?
I get very funny responses. So one of my projects, I've used exposed brickwork. So obviously I haven't plastered it. And यहाँ पे people don't plaster their homes because they don't have money. So like they will build the basic structure this year. Money, they will plaster it next year. So many people अभी भी आके मुझे पूछते हैं कि आप प्लास्टर कब करने वाले हो भाई, पैसा खत्म हो गया क्या आपका?
That's, yeah, I think many people tell us these stories when they're working outside. It's very interesting to know how they respond also.
Yeah. So while we were making this brick house, were looking like, you know, 3 circles. So one of the neighbor came and he asked client, what are these? And the client was like, we are making 3 wells. And he was like, why 3 wells so close by? And then the client was like, oh, that I don't know, that you ask my architect. So yeah,
Yes,
there are many funny stories. Yeah.
Pretty interesting. Anyone else wants to ask? I think people are a little shy here, so it'll take a while to open.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
Am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. Sir, so we have seen that you have been engaged in various hands-on workshops for
Yeah.
students who are willing to experiment on brick and natural materials. So would you like to share an experience about it?
Yeah, held a few workshops before. Actually, it was in collaboration with Dharti Hands. Maybe you must have heard about buildings. And yeah, because you know, this kind of work, there is no other alternative hands-on experience. So while we are making these structures, we are you know, trying that more students we want more and more students to come to the site and see how we do it, and we are always very happy to you know, share our experiences and kind of guide you guys. And yeah, we were planning to hold a few more workshops, but due to COVID and lockdown situation we couldn't. But yeah, I think we should be having it soon enough again.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello, sir.
Hi.
So, would you like to share the experiences of your expedition to Mount Unam? Seems quite an adventure.
So yeah, I've been into you know, mountaineering and adventure sports since I've always been very interested in that. So you know, after exploring Sahyadris, doing all these treks, I did this basic mountaineering course in Manali. Actually, there they teach you all the mountaineering that you can go for such expeditions. So yeah, this Mount Unum is actually in Leh Ladakh region, and the height of the peak is around 20,000 feet. So it was quite challenging, and it was you know, you need to establish 3-4 camps before you can reach the summit. and you need to be, it's like the test of your physics and your mental strength. Yeah, actually I kind of try and do one expedition every year, but yeah, so I did Mount. So I don't know, I can talk about that expedition for, that is the agenda today.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, sir.
Hello. Hi.
Hi. So actually, I've done a case study on brick house, and I'm fond of that structure. Can you tell something about the wooden ceiling and even the pillar slab used inside the brick house?
Pillar slab, and what else did you say?
Wooden ceiling.
Wooden ceiling. Actually, that's not a wooden ceiling, that's ferrocement slab. So that ferrocement slab is supported on the wooden beams, and even there we have used bamboo over those wooden beams. And also for the filler slab, the basic idea is that in the bottom part of the slab you don't need concrete, you just need the steel. So structurally that concrete is not required, so we simply replace that concrete with the earthen pots. In case of the brick house, we have used the circular earthen pots, which I got made by the. So yeah, your filler slabs do save on a lot of concrete. It also reduces the self weight of the slab. It reduces the overall cost of the slab, and because of the earthen pots, the heat gain is minimized, so that your internal temperature of the room remains quite more comfortable.
Okay. Thank you, sir. That was interesting to know.
Yeah.
The brick house is actually a very popular case study among the students. We all really love it actually. And so there's a question in the chat. It's by Sakshi.
Yeah.
She's asking, if you were to change one thing about your clients, what would it be?
About my clients, okay, there are so many things. So yeah, I think the at very basic level, it is very challenging, and it is very necessary that you educate your clients. If you don't do that, they will make you build what they want you to, what they think is appropriate. So yeah, I think at very basic level, if I can change something, that I would like to change this perception that only RCC structures are strong, and if you want to build a proper house for yourself, then it has to be a RCC house. I think I would like to change that perception.
Yes, she says, thank you. Anyone else?
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah. So, what fascinates you to work with these materials like exposed bricks and mud, like in this age of concrete and steel? So, what made you turn to these materials?
So I think it is very important that you must question the, you know, because obviously the standard practices that we have learned in RCC, etc. But you must first ask yourself whether you really need to use those. Like for a ground floor structure or even a G+1 house, you really don't need RCC. I mean, RCC is required to go multi floors, while you can easily have load bearing G+1 structures. So and you know, each project requirements in terms of clients requirements, in terms of site, in terms of context, in terms of what are the locally available materials. So it is not like you know, I like to work with bricks. It's like what is available on your site, you know, then to make a structure like brick house, you either have to have very skilled masons, or you have to spend time on site training your local masons. So you need to think and understand all these aspects. It's not like, I like this material, so I use it.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
So my question is slightly similar to the previous one, the clients one. Like we know the clients are not very comfortable with the using of the natural elements. So like how do you make them understand the importance of using the natural elements, and how do you make them accept it?
So one if you can try and show a already existing natural building to the client, then it becomes much more easier, when they actually see it, then they start to believe that, a proper strong house can be built using natural materials. And when they go there, they also feel the difference of being inside in a RCC building and in a natural building. The natural buildings are much more comfortable to be inside. They are much more earthy. So yeah, I think one important way to do is to actually take your client to an existing natural building. Also, then there are other, it's not very easy. You can't, by giving a lecture or presentation. You need to keep educating them. You need to keep telling them that, what are the benefits of doing something in some specific way.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, my name is Sachi. Am I audible?
Hi, Sakshi. Yeah.
Yes. Sir, we have seen and observed that your designs are very organic, and everything it speaks and shouts organic. So, how is your design process? Like, from where do you start?
There is no standard design process.
Okay.
For me, the context is the key word here. Every time it depends. Is it flat? Is it contoured site? Do you have a lot of trees on site? Is it barren? Then what are the, obviously you need to, and then you need to give your answer to those requirements. What is the best way to fulfill those requirements?
Okay.
So, brick house, one challenging aspect was to kind of showcase that you can make a curvilinear, organic, free-flowing structures with the simple materials like brick and stone in the natural form. So yeah, the process also varies depending on so many factors of the project, and it is.
So we have,
my every project has that, and it is not like my every project has that organic language. Some of my works are very simple and clean lines. So yeah, essentially it depends on the context. Yeah.
So we've been given this project where it was an idea that we were supposed to, step out of those factors which stop us from designing, or like the sun path roof or something. So I was getting more ideas for that. Thank you, sir. It was very...
Okay.
Hello, sir. So, how were you inspired by Laurie Baker and Nari Gandhi? Because these architects also emphasized on local materials and traditional concepts in construction.
Yeah. So for me, they're like my gurus, and all of their buildings, all the Nari Gandhi projects. And I went to Kerala. I stayed there. I worked with the engineers in the Cosford. Went on their sites to understand various technologies. So yeah, I mean, if you see both of their works in terms of design, they're very different. But if you see at very basic level, very similar fundamentals, like being true to the material, like exploring the materials in different ways. If you see even Laurie Baker's buildings, you'll see that he never got stuck with any specific kind of. He was exploring different forms, and similarly, even obviously, Nari Gandhi was a master architect in terms of organic architecture. So yeah, even just going, seeing their work, it simply inspires you.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
That's very true. Actually, reading about everyone is very inspiring.
Yeah, reading,
And
and you must try and go and visit their structures. It's very
yeah,
different experience to actually be there. It's not just about the material. It's not just about the space. It is about the how do you feel once you are inside that space, and you
yes,
will understand it only when you go there.
that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
And yes, I think, do we have any more questions? Or else after one or two, we can conclude the session.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
Could you share your experiences about the workshop you attended? Like you mentioned the tunnel something, because
Tunnel.
it's
Yeah.
really, yeah, it's really hard to find such workshops here in the city.
So yeah, I know. Even I feel bad that there are not many workshops held in Bombay or in our area. But if you see Orwell, or if you go to find a lot of such practices taking place, and you can check Thannal's website. It's thannal.com, THANNAL.com. They hold regular workshops on natural buildings. Yeah, I went for the 2 or 3 workshops. One was in general natural building, one was natural plasters. What we get to learn there is that how did they experiment with their soil, and what were the results that and you get to work hands-on with that material, so that it it gives you enough of a base to come back and start experimenting with on your own. So yeah, I think to understand this thing, that you go and do those workshops, and it's not like you will get ready-made answers through these workshops, but you will understand the process of going about the construction of natural buildings.
Yes, so that's really fascinating. It would be really nice if you could come to a college as well and do some workshop thingy
Yeah,
after
sure.
some time.
I've been planning that since a few years actually, but it didn't happen. So
Yes, thank you.
hopefully very soon. Yeah.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
So I actually had a question. So,
Yeah.
how would you say that it could be made possible to use these materials in an urban context? Like in a city like Mumbai, you see RCC structures and glass structures. Can it be made possible to use materials like this?
So again, I think it is very important to understand the context first. It is very different if you are building in a city, because we have very limited space there, and because of space limitation, you don't have any other option but to go vertical. And once you have to go vertical, then mud doesn't work. I'm not saying that you cannot with the mud. There have been a lot of multi-story buildings in the past with the mud, but today the fact is that in a city like Bombay, you have to. There are so many factors like even time that we have available. Like for the place in Vada, I have a lot of mud and all these. While if in Bombay, I can't have enough of mud, so obviously I will have some, but maybe not enough to finish the building. So it doesn't make sense to kind of import it from somewhere else. Yeah, like even if I have to make a multi-story building in Bombay, I would go for RCC. I'm not saying that you must not build. You must understand what suits the best and use that.
Yes, sir, that is well put. Thank you.
So we have a question in the chat. She's asking, what are your views on vernacular architecture?
Yeah, I think there is a lot to learn from vernacular architecture. If you really go to see how many people actually appoint a professional architect while they are making their own. In the villages would appoint an architect, a designer, and or someone. They will simply use the traditional knowledge that's been passed through the generations. So they have a limited budget. So what they try and do is they will use whatever is available locally. That obviously overall cost of the construction, but these are simple logics which go hand in hand together. So if you study the vernacular architecture, you would find the elements like courtyards, which today we are not utilizing as much as we should, I think, because it provides you good natural light throughout the day, cross ventilation. There are so many advantages of utilizing. So these are the kind of things which we need to learn and understand from the vernacular architecture.
Yes, so very true. I think with this question we can end the session as we crossed our time limit.
Okay.
Sir, if there's anything you want to add before we end.
So yeah, I think more than the presentation, I enjoyed, and maybe I will share my number and in this PPT if you guys want, so that
Yes,
if you have any more doubts, we can always.
Definitely, that would be great.
Yeah.
And so we'd love to see you again in college and have a workshop or just have you talking to us.
Hopefully soon.
We're really looking forward to that. And thank you so much for joining us, sir. And thank you to everyone who joined in today.
Yeah.
I think we can leave. Thank you.